Back again here in the Frontier Regional School Library here in South Deerfield. I am here with Senator Rosenberg. Sorry. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. We're really glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
Happy we were able to talk to you. So let's talk about the election. What were some of your predictions coming into the midterm election?
Well, we were seeing all indications of be very high turnout, and that's starting to demonstrate itself in the exit polling around the state. The governor's race, which is of course the top of the ticket, is a really big deal for us, was from the, let's say, middle of this election cycle, like 3-4 months out. It was a 2% race, what we called a 2% race. Neither of the two leading candidates were able to break into double digits, so neither of them reached a 10% lead over the other. And most of the leads ended up being within the margin of error, or if they got beyond the margin of error, just like 2 points, maybe 2.5 points. So the prediction was, and it has turned out to be across the state based on the exit polling, still a 2% race. Now, we just saw the exit polling here, which shows a dramatic lead for Deval Patrick, but across the state, particularly in the suburbs and lower turnout in the cities, is resulting in the exit polling in Eastern Mass suggesting that it's still a 2% race. But if this holds up here and holds up in Western Mass, Mass could determine the outcome of this election. Right,
we agree. And again, as we saw in some of the numbers earlier, we're seeing huge turnouts that are extremely impressive for a midterm election.
Yeah.
So
you've got all of our congressmen have opponents out here, and people are serious about their congressional representation in Washington. These two guys from Western Mass are in very key positions in Washington, and it's been a long time since Western Massachusetts has enjoyed that much power in the House. So there's huge interest in making sure they stay there. There's also a huge interest around here because the largest employers are publicly funded employment, from education to health care to human services. In these two counties, Hampshire and Franklin counties, there'd be a huge interest in making sure that question 1 is defeated. So my guess is, and you didn't do any exit polling on that, so we don't know how that's doing, but my guess is when we see the results, it's going to mirror, maybe not exactly, but it's going to mirror Deval Patrick's vote is going to be the direction in which the no on 3 and maybe no on 1. I think people are kind of conflicted on number 1, which is the sales tax on alcohol.
It's a tough issue.
But that's $100 million a year compared to question 3, which is $2.5 billion a year.
Almost 10% of the state's budget.
Yeah, because they weren't just looking at rolling it back; they were looking to go down to 3%. Huge, huge cut.
Okay. Let's talk about, I guess, well, we've talked about the economy a lot on the program. What about some of the bigger issues concerning the whole nation that, do affect the state, such as maybe the war or, other foreign relations? Do you have anything you want to say about those to kind of relate them to what goes on in Massachusetts as a result of the bigger picture?
Well, I think everybody in the country is really principally fixated on the economy. And before I came over, I saw some things on the national news, and they did some surveys, and the economy was like what 50 or 60% of the people who were turning out to vote were interested in. Nothing else, including war, broke 10%. So it's really, this election is really about the economy and people's fear that the negative economic situation is going to trickle down and hit them if it hasn't already hit them seriously, but hit them more seriously if they haven't been hit at all, they're going to get hit, and if they've been hit, that they're going to be more seriously hit. So it's really, the economy is really what's driving it. The president's taken some serious steps in relation to Iraq, and so that's starting to cool. People are still upset about Afghanistan, but it's not, that is not what's driving people's worries and behavior now. They're worried about losing their homes, their kids being able to go to college, their kids having to drop out of college, kids not having summer jobs to be able to help, you know, with the cost of college. And so these are the things that people are really worrying about.
Right. As far as the economy goes, and a lot of people would agree, we're kind of on the way back up, and we're kind of seeing positive change. Well, do you agree with that?
Very slow.
Right.
It's a very slow recovery, and the good news is Massachusetts is actually ahead of the country, but we're still bumping along the bottom. This is not a good situation. State revenues are starting to grow, which is a good sign, because that means more people are working and buying things, so they're paying taxes. More people are working, so they're paying taxes, and they have enough money to go out and buy some stuff, so the sales tax and some of these other things are starting to rebound. Right. But this is going to be another 2 or 3 year recovery. They said it would be about a 9-year recovery back to the highest level of revenue, state revenue and economic activity, as we enter the recession. So from the high point, to get back to that high point again, they figured it's going to be about 9 years.
Right.
So we have some more distance to go.
What, along with keeping taxes up there at a point where we can, generate revenue, what else can we do at, say, the state and even the local levels to help that rebound, to help us get back up there?
Well, there's a couple of things going on. One is that education is really the backbone of economic development, because we're a knowledge-driven economy here in Massachusetts.
Right.
And so making sure that we invest enough in education, even in the bad times, is really critical, so that we're producing a workforce that is ready as the economy rebounds to fill those jobs and has the requisite skills.
And do you think we're doing that right now, or do you think more could be done?
Well, we're doing the best we can within the resources that are available, and education has been a priority. The federal government sent us a bunch of money over a 2-year period, which really helped us to hold the cuts down to the very, very bare minimum. We need to be spending more, we need to be investing more in education in this state, and I'm hoping that as we grow back out of this recession, that we can ignite another debate about more investment in education. And that's both at the K through 12 and higher ed level. Student charges at UMass and the other state and public colleges and universities are too high, and state appropriation is too low. So we need to really bring up that state appropriation and bring down the student charges, so that kids who have the ability but not the means will have a place to go.
Right.
And that's what the whole public higher ed system is there for,
right,
is to make sure that those young people get an opportunity to get a good education. So education is really critical. But we're also taking advantage of the federal money to improve our infrastructure, our roads and water systems and things of that nature, which can help with economic development as we start rebounding. And we're always looking for individual projects where a company wants to grow or a company wants to come into the state, and try to figure out what we can do to help that company. The other area that we've done a great deal of work over the last 10, 12 years or so is really working at trying to improve the workers' comp system, the unemployment insurance systems, these kinds of costs. Healthcare, we're doing a lot of work now in Massachusetts, and we're ahead of the rest of the country in trying to figure out how to control costs. We're not controlling them yet the way that we need to, but we're ahead of the rest of the country in trying to think through and figure out how to do that. Because first we got everybody insured, and we were years ahead of the rest of the country, and now we've been turning our attention to how do we reduce medical errors, how do we reduce bookkeeping errors, how do we eliminate duplication in the system, how do we eliminate paperwork and things of that nature. So there's a lot of work going on to try to squeeze cost out so that our businesses can have more money to invest in their businesses rather than in these insurance plans, and then create more jobs as a result.
Right, okay. You brought up a lot of good points, and as you said earlier, the economy is going to be the driving force in this election. What, I guess, and like you said, the schools and education being the backbone, right? Do you think that in 10 years or 20 years or way further down the line, do you think we're still going to be, as you said, kind of ahead of the game in the country with a good funding for education and good turnouts?
That depends on two things: what the people demand and what the elected officials deliver. And we are way ahead of the rest of the country on education. We have some of the top scores in various grades. I don't have that data in my head right now, but the reports have been out. We are way ahead of the rest of the country in most areas in terms of improving our education system. We were talking healthcare, but we also have spent 20 years improving the Massachusetts education system. So we do need additional investment, and that investment will only be possible when the economy is improving and when people are willing to press their elected officials and willing to support the expenses needed in order to improve and continue to improve the parts of education that still need more work.
Right. And I guess in the long run, or even the very long run, those expenses are going to be worth it, and they're going to...
It's an investment.
Right.
It's an investment. And, you know, you've seen the data. Anybody who gets the opportunity to go to college increases their lifetime earnings. Your increased lifetime earnings means you're going to pay more taxes.
Right.
Those taxes, some of those taxes should be invested in education for the next generation so that you keep this going. It's an engine that you want to just keep moving by virtue of the fact that you are investing some of the income. And Massachusetts has the third highest per capita income virtually every year, year after year after year. Connecticut is first, so our neighboring state of Connecticut is actually highest per capita income. We're third highest per capita income in the country. So we're a relatively wealthy state, and that's because we have a knowledge-driven economy. And it's because we're innovative and we apply ourselves in a way that really, our colleges and universities, our healthcare system are two of the major drivers of our economy in Massachusetts. Right. And those kinds of entities create good paying jobs. Good paying jobs allow you to collect money to reinvest in the system.
Okay. Great. I think we're running sort of low on time. I think we're going to cut to a quick break and maybe get some more data from the last of the polls. Mr. Rosenberg, thank you again
My
so
pleasure.
much for coming here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot.
As was said before, it's 7:30. There's still 30 minutes to vote. If you haven't voted, there's still time to make your vote count.
All right.
And every vote is going to count in this election.
Oh, yes, it will. All right. So we'll be right back.
And we're going to count every vote.